channel BethChatsBooks. So it is a Saturday evening and I am in my room and I'm having a cheeky glass of red, and I thought now would be a really good time to show you some of the books that I have got from the library, which I went to earlier today. So I'm sorry if you can hear a lot of traffic outside. I realised when I did my last video that there was a lot of traffic. We're right by a main road here and you can hear the traffic lights are very close to this house, so you can hear when people set off when the set of lights change. Also you can hear ambulances because this is very near to the centre of town where I live. So ambulances, you can hear people actually walk past the house. Fortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. So I am experimenting as well in my room about where's the best place to film, because I tried on my bed. So my bed is here in relation to where I'm sat now. I'm kind of sat in the side section of my room. So behind me is some of my books and my stuff, and obviously the telly behind me there. But this is a little place where I can sit down and show you some of the books. I don't know if it's going to make the noise worse because I'm next to the two windows here, but this is the side of the room that's not facing another person's room, if that makes any sense, so it might be easier to feel less self-conscious about talking and having other people hear me. So this is kind of the best place I thought to try, and then obviously when I edit it I'll see if it works for us or if it just doesn't. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the books that I got from the library today. So I currently still have 2 from the library. I finished the rest of them, but I still have The Witch Elm by Tana French to read, and I'm currently still reading Cabin Fever by Alex Dahl, and this one I'm about 150 pages in and it's about 350, so I could probably even finish that tonight if I have a quiet evening. I'm really enjoying this one so far. So I took about 6 back and then I took another 8 or 6 out, so I have quite a lot of books to show you guys. So the first one I have is How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Cherie Jones. So this was on the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction this year. I have noticed it at the library a few times, and because I didn't have any books that majorly popped out at me, a lot of the books I collected were books that were in the back of my mind to get to at some point, but usually when I go to the library I get distracted by the new releases titles. So when I went today I only had about 20 minutes before it shut, and I saw this and thought it is one I want to get to anyway, so probably now is the time to take it out and see if I enjoy it. So it is set in Barbados and follows the character Lala and her grandmother Wilma. Wilma, it says here, tells Lala a cautionary tale about what happens to girls who disobey their mothers. For Wilma, it's a story of a willful adventurer who ignores the warnings of those around her and suffers as a result. When Nala grows up, she sees the story offers hope of life and love after losing a baby in the most terrible of circumstances and marrying the wrong man. And Mira Whalen, her story is about keeping alive, trying to make sense of the fact that her husband has been murdered and that she didn't get the chance to tell him that she loved him after all. How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House is a powerful, visceral novel of lives across race and class and of the sacrifices some women make to survive. So I don't know if that makes that any clearer for you guys. I don't really know what it's about. Obviously it's going to be set in Barbados and follows predominantly female characters and their struggles for survival, and probably an exploration of their relationships with men and maybe with motherhood and things of that nature. So I'm quite excited to get to this one. And then the next one I have is True Crime Story by Joseph Knox. This was one I forgot to take out last time I went to the library, so when I saw it was still there, I took it out. I just know that people were raving about this a few months ago and I can't really remember what it's about now. Oh, so it says here, in The 17th of December 2011, Zoe Nolan, a 19-year-old Manchester University student, walked out of a party taking place in a shared accommodation where she had been living for 3 months. She was never seen again. So it says at the bottom, Zoe Nolan may be missing, presumed dead, but her story is just the beginning. So it says on the back that it's a standalone novel, but it's kind of eerie because it definitely sounds like it could be a true crime story. The irony of the title. So it says on the back that he's lived in Manchester and Stoke, the author, and this is his first time novel, so maybe it is heavily influenced by his experience of living in Manchester and having nights out in Manchester, and maybe what that's like. I live quite near to Manchester. I don't live in Manchester. I live in a northern city, Preston, just a little bit of a drive away from it, but you know, a quick train ride in as such. And there is a lot of issues with people going missing, and a lot of young people dying through falling into the canal because they've been intoxicated on nights out, and there's been a lot of nighttime related crime in that city. I think this will be a really interesting book to read, to find out more about that. It's always something that's made me a bit nervous. I've had quite a sheltered upbringing, so these stories seem bizarre and crazy to most of us who live in kind of a sheltered way of life and in a sheltered living situation. And it'll be interesting marking this because I do think it is very relevant to cities like Manchester today. So I'm excited to read this one. Then I picked up Still Life by Sarah Winman. I have read one of her other books, Tin Man, before, and When God Was a Rabbit has been highly raved about, and that was the one that came before. But this one had a lot of buzz when it came out. I tried to request it on NetGalley and I didn't get it, unfortunately. But it was on my radar to read, but this is slightly different to Tin Man because I'm pretty sure this is a historical fiction. Yeah, it says it's set in 1944 in the ruined wine cellar of a Tuscan villa. As the Allied troops advance and bombs fall around them, two strangers meet and share an extraordinary evening together. So this will be quite interesting for me, because I went through a phase of really enjoying, when I was younger, World War fiction and all kinds of different elements of World War fiction about the bombings, about the Holocaust and about Holocaust survivors, and about different countries, and they're either countries that have been invaded by Germany during World War II, and World War I novels as well. I've really enjoyed. But then I kind of went through a phase where I felt oversaturated by those kind of novels and wanted to read something slightly different in terms of historical fiction. So I have in recent years steered away from any World War fiction, be that World War I or World War II, and probably war fiction has probably focused on different, either more current wars or modern wars, and particularly in different continents than Europe as well. So it'll be interesting. This will be my first venture back. But I do really like Sarah Winman's writing, and this got such high acclaim that I am happy to try and read this book and see if it will appeal to me. So I'll let you guys know how I get on with this one. And then the next one I have is Hot Stew by Fiona Mosley. I don't need to say too much about this because I'm pretty sure I hauled this in my last library book haul, or maybe the one before that, but I never got round to reading it, so I had to return it because I'm... just a bookmark. Because I ended up renewing it the full 10 times with the library, and then you have to give it back after that point, so I always thought I'll get back to it because I was interested in it. So it talks about Soho. It says a part of London that truly never sleeps, addicts, sex workers, the homeless and the lost. On its corner sits a large townhouse, the same as all its neighbours, but it hosts a teeming throng of rich and poor, full from the basement ramp to the roof terrace. Precious and Tabitha call the top floors their home, but it's under threat. So I think it's talking about the sense of the old ways of cities and places, and how they're kind of getting a facelift, and how the history and the communities that belonged in those areas are being pushed out because they are being made into complexes or swanky bars, and how that has an impact on the people that live there. It is obviously a novel, but I think it's raising a debate on those kind of issues, and I think that will be really interesting to see how that pans out. So I do really want to get to this one. And then the next one is Burntcoat by Sarah Hall. Someone was raving about this quite recently. I didn't realise that this was quite such a short book. Yeah, it's only about 210 pages. And I think I get a lot of the Sarahs confused. Sarah Waters, Sarah Perry, Sarah Hall, but they're all very highly regarded. I obviously know Sarah Waters writes all the LGBT fiction, but I think Sarah Hall and Sarah Perry I get a little bit confused. But this again is a historical fiction. The cover is beautiful. So it says, in the bedroom above her immense studio at Burntcoat, the celebrated sculptor Edith Harkness is making her final preparations. Her life will draw to an end in the coming days. The story of two lovers confined, Burntcoat is a sublime and scorching experience, an elegy burning with resistance which no reader will forget. So it sounds really good, and I think it will pack a punch considering it's a small book. I don't really know anything about it. If you look, the cover kind of shows wood engravings. It looks kind of like a tree bark. It's really beautiful. It's all glittery. So I'm going to give it a read and see what I think of that one. Then the next one I have is Other People's Clothes by Calla Henkel. I listened to the podcast What Page Are You On?, which has Bethany Rutter and Alice Slater, and they interviewed Calla about this novel and they said it was really good. I highly trust their recommendations. A lot of books that they have said, as they quote, are banging, have turned out to be really, really good books. So I think that my taste aligns with them quite well. And they obviously raved about this one. They love The Virgin Suicides, which I do. And there's a couple of other books they've recommended. Detransition Baby, and I really enjoyed that one as well. So when they have a book that they're a little bit obsessed with for a while, I keep it on my radar. So then when I went to the library today and saw this and knew this was one that they'd raved about, I thought I will get it out before anybody else did. So this is set in 2009 in Berlin. It says two art students arrive from New York, both desperate for the city to solve their problems. Hayley and Zoe, together they rent a once magnificent apartment from eccentric crime writer Beatrice Becks. With little to fill their time, they spend the nights twisting through Berlin's club scene and their days hungover. So hopefully I'll like this one. I don't know if it's going to be a bit Sally Rooney-esque. I know there's been a big plug in recent years for kind of women's fiction that centres on the kind of millennial woman who's struggling with identity, who doesn't necessarily want to have the traditional life with the marriage and children, and are more career focused, and that existential crisis. Sally Rooney's written a lot of books that centre around that, and the modern problems that I presume women in their late 20s, early 30s experience in the world at the moment. I don't know if it's going to steer into that, but it seems like there's something a little bit sinister about this book that I have a feeling that the girls mentioned in the podcast, which intrigued me. And I know they have a interest in darker novels, which I tend to as well, so we'll see. But if it's a bit Sally Rooney-esque and a bit Daisy, what's her name, who wrote Ghosts, if it's a bit like that, then it might not appeal to me, but we'll see. Then the next one, this is the penultimate one, I've just got one more after this. So this is A Lying Room by Nicci French. I recently read House of Corrections by Nicci French and really loved that. And I do have all of the Frida Klein series. I read Blue Monday in 2021, but I didn't get any further into the series, so it probably will be a case of rereading that book and starting it again at some point. But the standalones are working quite well for me to get through. Really like their writing style, really like the premise of House of Corrections, found it really readable. Really like the plot twists in it, and definitely believe the hype that they're a very good pairing and a trusted thriller team, and I kind of trust what they are producing now, so now I'm just eager to get my hands on more. So The Lying Room is the next one, and this is about, let's have a little look. Niamh Connolly is a trusted colleague and friend, a mother, a wife. She also made mistakes, some small, some unconsciously done, some large, some deliberate. She's only human, after all. But now one mistake is spiralling out of control, and Niamh is bringing those around her into immense danger. She can't tell the truth, so how far is she prepared to go to protect those she loves? And who does she really know, and who can she trust? A liar, a cheat, a threat. Niamh Connolly is all these things. Could she also be a murderer? So this one might be quite interesting. We'll see. Usually a lot of Nicci French books have really strong plots and premises. And House of Corrections had a really interesting one where there was a body found in the shed of a lady's house, and everyone was convinced that she had murdered him, but she has bad days where, due to a mental health issue, she kind of blacks out and she doesn't have any recollection of any contact with him. She's adamant she hasn't done it, but she can't prove that she hasn't done it. So that was a really interesting premise, and that was set half in prison, remand, waiting for her trial date, and half was set in the courtroom where she was defending herself. So that was a really interesting setup for a book, and I think this one will also be really interesting. So I can't wait to get to this one. And then the final one I have is the Turnout by Megan Abbott. Again, the ladies at What Page Pod rave about Megan Abbott's thrillers, and I've never got round to one, so I saw this on the new releases section shelf in the library, and I thought, I think it's time that I pick this up and see if I'll get on with Megan Abbott's writing style. So I literally know nothing about this book. So let's have a little look. It was three of them, always the three of them, until it wasn't, and that was when everything went wrong, starting with the fire, or before. Dara and Marie Durrett had been dancers since they can remember. After their parents' death in a tragic accident, the sisters began running the school together, along with Charlie, Dara's husband, and once their mother's prize student, the three have perfected a dance that keeps the studio thriving. But when a suspicious accident occurs just at the onset of the school's annual performance of the Nutcracker, a season of competition, anxiety and exhilaration, an interloper arrives and threatens their delicate balance. So it sounds really unnerving, which sounds really good to me. I love books that get under your skin and you have to figure out why you feel uncomfortable, and everything's not given to you. You have to actively work as a reader to figure out what's going on. Love those kind of books. So that sounds right up my alley, actually. So they're all the books. Just gonna cheers. So those are all of the books that I took out of the library. I'm hoping I might be able to do a wrap up, because I've noticed that over the last few months I show you the hauls, but I never managed to wrap them up. If you follow me on Goodreads, you can see my ratings, and I always write in my own diary my own thoughts and feelings, but I think because of university work and having a really hectic period really over the last 6 months, not just the last few months, I've really fallen behind with the whole doing of videos. But since I've started my masters, it's been very hard because I only get a definite period of a break before I start my courses again. So I can't promise I'll do a wrap up, because once I get down to business with my uni work, once the module starts again, I'm kind of in that mindset for up to 11 weeks until the assessment gets handed in. But I'll try really hard to do a wrap up, and obviously I'm going to be a judge for the BookTube prize, so you will be seeing wrap ups of those books 2 months after I've read them, because we have to wait until everything's balloted and then we're allowed to release our vlogs. But you will be seeing those throughout the year, and obviously seeing what books I'm reading, and I'll give you a haul of the ones I'm reading and all of that jazz, so you'll see that very soon. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.